Hi, welcome back. I hope you're doing well. When it comes to narcissism or narcissistic abuse, one question that you may ask yourself is, does anybody else see this? This could be in a narcissistic family, which could very well be your family of origin, or it could be a community or a social circle, or it could be the workplace or your workplace. Regardless of the situation, if you have witnessed and or experienced narcissistic abuse personally, it can be very, very frustrating and put you in a really difficult situation. There may or may not be an opportunity for you to speak up or to speak out against the narcissistic abuse that's occurring. And this could be for a number of reasons. You could be in a social situation where it's awkward, or you may be afraid of being labeled as a troublemaker or someone who's stirring up drama or causing conflict or something like that, or creating problems or being difficult. One thing that you probably already know is that narcissistic abuse can be very difficult to detect, and it can be even more difficult to address. And there are certain reasons behind this. One is that this behavioral pattern is very insidious, and narcissists love to operate in the gray areas. They love to they're very crafty and very deceitful, and they like to live in the gray areas where it's really hard to pin down and call them out on their behavior. And to the naked eye and on the surface, it can even appear innocent, especially if they're more covert with it. Or it could be a grandiose narcissist who is behaving covertly in the moment. But it can be very difficult to pinpoint. And also, narcissists are very protective of their image, and they will fight tooth and nail to protect it. And so it can be very difficult to unmask them or to expose the behavior. And a lot of times it's a patient game where you have to wait for them to slip up, and typically they do, and expose themselves. The good news is that there is a lot more language and attention that is geared towards narcissism and narcissistic abuse. And so maybe after years of not really being able to pinpoint or put a label to the behavioral patterns that you've noticed, whether it's in your family, at work, in your community, etc., there's terminology around it, and people are talking about it more and more and bringing attention to it, and it's making it very difficult, or it's making it more difficult for narcissists to operate in the shadows and to deceive people. But you still need to be very discerning and wise about who and what you're dealing with and the situations that you're in, so that you can stay sharp and protect yourself from narcissistic abuse. Some points that I wanted to highlight around narcissistic abuse, as far as whether or not people see it, are one thing that I wanted to point out is that a lot of times experience is the best teacher. Sometimes people just have to experience narcissistic abuse in order to understand it, and also to really grasp the insidious nature of it and the damage that it can do. Also, I wanted to point out that, as a friend of mine always likes to say, the more you pay attention. And unfortunately, sometimes people have to pay. In other words, they have to actually go through narcissistic abuse and pay in terms of suffering through narcissistic abuse to pay more attention to it going forward in their relationships, whether they're personal or professional. A lot of times when you experience narcissistic abuse for yourself and you've been through that suffering, you've experienced that pain, you've been duped, you've been conned, you've been tricked, that's what helps you to be able to discern narcissistic abuse and these behavioral patterns and this toxicity going forward in future relationships and situations. A lot of times when something's not affecting people directly, it's easier for them to dismiss it or to avoid or ignore it because it's not impacting them. It's not that they don't see it, it's that it's not affecting them personally. So if you're in a relationship or a social circle, say with a group of friends, and the narcissist is being toxic or being catty towards you, for example, other people in the social circle may see the behavior and they may not even like it, and it may frustrate them or bother them in some kind of way. But because they're not the ones that are under the narcissist's attack, they're not going to say anything necessarily because they don't want to get involved. They don't want the narcissist to turn their attention, because narcissists tend to do that. They tend to lock in on targets and then just go after whoever they feel may be a threat to them. And so, especially if they feel like their image that they're trying to promote and project is being threatened. So that could very well be it. And so it's not that people don't see it, it's that it's not affecting them personally or directly. Also, there's what I would consider to be a no drama factor. As I was just mentioning, a lot of people, no one wants to be involved in drama. No one wants to be involved in a messy situation or what they perceive to be a messy situation. And people's ability to tolerate the drama and chaos that can oftentimes accompany narcissistic relationships, whether it's family, friends, workplaces, either their temperament, their own upbringing, their own trauma, or their own programming, or their own personality may not permit them to engage and involve themselves, even if it's for the greater good of cutting out the toxicity or shutting down the narcissist or their behavior. They can't do it. It's too stressful for them, it's too painful for them, it brings up memories and things, and so it's easier to just stay quiet, stay back, and just let it all play out. When it comes to narcissistic abuse, everyone may not see it, but that doesn't mean that no one sees it. Be encouraged about that. I know that in my workplace situations, on my jobs that I've had, or in social situations that I've experienced, and even situations like I had mentioned where I've been conned or scammed, I've talked to people later after the fact, after I realized what I was dealing with, or I've had people approach me offline and said, I see this, I don't like it, I don't like the way this person is treating you, or I stay away from that person because I saw through their BS a while ago, or they have bad vibes, or they have bad energy, or they did this to me and I was done with them, wrote them off. So a lot of times people do see it. I remember as a child growing up, I felt very frustrated in my narcissistic family, and I remember saying to my aunt at lunches that we would go on, just the two of us, and I would say, gosh, does anybody else in the family see all of the dysfunction here? Like, no one's talking about this. It's like the elephant in the room that no one's talking about. And the truth of the matter is, I think people do see it, but they either don't know what to do, they don't know what to say, or they don't feel like it's going to really make a difference, or they know that the toxic or narcissistic individual or individuals are very messy, and that if they do speak up or they do involve themselves, that it's going to be a long haul for them and a lot of trouble, and a lot of people just don't think that it's worth the trouble, and they'd rather just stay away, protect themselves, which is one way of doing it, and let it all play out, as I mentioned before. Another thing I want to point out in terms of people seeing the narcissistic abuse is that, as we've talked about and as we know, narcissists are very charming, They're very deceitful. They lie a lot. They use tactics like mirroring, religion, or religious rhetoric. They create chaos and confusion because that again allows them to operate in the gray area where people aren't really sure what's going on. They kind of think things are kind of funny, but they can't really pinpoint it. And also, narcissists will run smear campaigns around the person who exposes them and try to make them look bad or tear down their character or ruin their relationships or try to taint their image in some kind of way. And that can create a situation where people are hesitant to speak up and speak out, and it can also create a situation where it can make it difficult for other people to detect the narcissistic abuse. So what can you do? Well, one thing that you can do is go no contact. This allows you to remove yourself from the narcissistic situation, whether it's your family, whether it's your work situation, whether it's a social circle or community. Remove yourself from the situation, or just even take a step back and then do some reflecting, like, okay, what's going on here? Who is this person? What do I know about them? What don't I know about them? And what's going on in this dynamic here? And really think critically and consider what's going on. You may just go with the flow and not take the time or the opportunity to do your due diligence about someone. Say, for example, do a background check on them. Inquire about them within the community, asking other people, doing your research, doing your homework, fact-checking them if there's something that they're saying or something they're promising or something they're promoting or presenting to you, fact-checking them. A lot of times people don't take the opportunity to do that, and with a little bit of time and a little bit of digging, a lot of times the information is very easily accessible. I mentioned previously in my video about murder and manipulation about the alleged murderer who basically fooled an entire community here with a lot of lies, with a lot of triangulation, a lot of gaslighting, and a lot of future faking, that one of the TV producers here locally who had been dealing with him and had him on her program a handful of times, when it was all said and done and after he had been arrested and jailed, she did a search on his name and she paid the $15 or $20 or however much it was online for a background report. And once she did that, all kinds of stuff came up. There was a list of felonies, there was just an entire history there of behavior that was illegal and just all kinds of stuff. And in addition to that, I believe I mentioned this before, but some of his grown children came forward on social media to express their condolences over the passing or the death of his estranged wife, and they came forward and shared about their experience with him as a father, being abandoned by him, the abuse that they endured when they were being raised by him, or not raised, as the case may have been. And these are things where literally it only took minutes to do a little bit of checking. When we gathered for dinner with a group of us who had interacted with the alleged murderer, that's when everybody started sharing their experiences with him, and all kinds of things came out. Oh yeah, he promised me this and that never happened, or he told me this about you, or whatever the case may be. And these are things that, that got kind of overlooked, not overlooked, but these are things that people missed, that were huge red flags, that if everyone had done their due diligence and done their fact checking and communicated this to other people who had been dealing with him, could have been exposed much earlier. And who knows, perhaps perhaps his estranged wife and those beautiful young children could have had their lives spared. Anyway, just something to think about. Narcissists really rely on staying hidden, keeping their history hidden, whether it's criminal or their upbringing or background, or perhaps their own trauma and tragedy and personality and all of that. They really work hard to uphold this false image of themselves that they present to the world. In doing so, they inflict a lot of harm and trauma and damage to people on the receiving end of their abuse. It's not okay. And a lot of times people see it, but they don't say anything, or they don't see it and they remain in the narcissist vortex of lies, chaos, drama, gaslighting, and toxicity until things implode. And eventually they do. Narcissistic abuse can be very difficult to detect, and it can be frustrating and discouraging if you see it and you feel that no one else does, because they're still choosing to engage with the narcissist, or they're just not saying anything, or they're not speaking up on your behalf or other people's behalves if they see the abuse taking place. They may not recognize it, they may not want to get involved. The best thing that you can do is to educate yourself, enlighten yourself, and empower yourself through no contact, reading and studying, thinking critically, and doing your due diligence. And know that you're not alone and you're not crazy. Know who you're dealing with, know who you are. Take care, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.